Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to From Under a Rock.
Yeah.
No.
I want Ryan to keep going. It's all Ryan right now.
The podcast where we pick a movie that one or more of us has not seen by now that they should have, and watch them, bringing them out from under the proverbial rock.
And this time we got kind of impatient because I deemed like a month and a half the amount of time that they should have seen
You
this
should
movie.
have seen this movie.
And our pick was It Follows, so stay tuned as we talk about that.
We were walking into the movie theater to see It Follows just now. I was just kind of, we were a little bit early. I was just walking down the hallway looking at the artwork that they have hanging on the walls. And I hear this guy behind me say, check out the symmetry on this one. Or look at the symmetry on this one. I turn around and it's just this like really gray-haired, like really short, kind of stooped dude. He was like, his head was like...
What a weird way to describe a person. A stooped dude.
He was stooped, and I was like, oh yeah, it's beautiful. The symmetry is fantastic.
This was just today?
Yeah, this was just now. And he looks at, he sees my shirt, which you on the video you can see it's for the subreddit R Kappa.
Uh-huh.
It looks kind of like an Illuminati.
Yeah, it does actually.
Sort of thing. And he sees my shirt and he points at it and he says, "So are you a Mason then?"
Did you say yes?
I didn't know.
Oh my
I was
God.
like,
Bye.
no. I was like really fumbling trying to explain
to
R
make sure you
Kappa
don't
to him.
die.
You just brushed
And
with
he's
death.
like, "Oh, right on." And then he fist bumps me and just walks away.
Just a
God,
stoopy
if you had
fist
said
bump.
yes, who knows what kind of crazy meetings you
What
would have
kind of
been
doors
invited
that would have
to.
opened.
Yeah.
We watched It Follows this week on the suggestion of Michael, as mentioned previously.
Mm-hmm.
So, Michael, you brought this movie to the table. Can you give us just a brief, I mean, Ryan kind of said it right there, but just the brief synopsis of the plot?
Yeah. A girl is kind of seeing a guy. They sleep together, and then he kind of knocks her out with chloroform, ties her up, just to inform her, hey, I just gave you this thing via that sex, and it's going to be following you. It's going to look like someone you know or like a stranger.
I wish you had written this movie now.
Yeah.
I just gave you this
Via
thing
that
via
sex.
that sex.
Speaking of, how was it? Was like on a scale of 1 to 10.
How was my sex? He just kind of lays it out like this thing's going to follow you. The only thing you can really do to get rid of it is to pass it on to someone else by sleeping with them.
Yeah, I specifically like the way that this movie makes use of framing and space and depth of field.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
The focus, the soft focus, and like you seeing something in the distance.
That's one of the coolest features about this movie to me, because if you're a fan of like blood and gore type horror movies, this isn't for you. But if you like movies that are just like, I just feel anxious when I watch this movie. Even a second time, knowing when things are coming, I'm just sitting there and I'm like fidgeting in my seat and I'm anxious. And I mean, I think that speaks to how well this movie is not just written, but shot.
What was the name? Hugh? Was that the original, one of his names?
That was
He had
his
like
fake name.
His fake name.
And then
Jeff.
Hugh.
Jeff was
is his real name.
I mean, he did her a favor by chaining her up and making her see it, because she didn't, she sleeps with Greg and it's like, hey, this thing's going to follow you. And of course, he's never seen the effects of it, so he doesn't believe it. Hugh made it to where she has to believe that this thing is coming for her.
I think Jeff got really lucky in that he picked someone who was going to be very conscientious in avoiding the thing.
Yeah.
Because, they sleep with, some hookers at the end and, those dudes on the boat. And it doesn't take very long for the creature to
It's
get
implied
through.
it gets back to them.
However,
Yeah.
Jeff is like really safe because she is doing a great job of getting away from it.
He's like, man, this is what like having a normal life is
Which,
like.
mentioning the score, one thing I really appreciated in this movie was that they never used the score to highlight something that isn't the thing following.
Yeah.
They build suspense, but they're not going to... It's almost as if it kind of has a theme.
Payoff.
Yeah, it's like... Because when she was just getting home and she was in her bathroom looking in the mirror down her underwear, and then all of a sudden,
boom,
there's a dodgeball that hits her window.
If
you pay attention to the score, there's not... Like, it's kind of building to something, but it's not implying that she's in immediate danger.
Right.
It's just more of a startle, but not a to me, a jump scare is when it leads you to believe it's going to be the thing and then pays it off as something else.
And while the score here wasn't as catchy, I would say, like there wasn't like something you could hum, I guess.
Yeah. I couldn't even. I can't
Watch
remember
me.
what.
Watch me.
Okay. It sounds like you're just punching a cat.
Is this Psycho?
Almost.
As this blog entry, it's Oh That Film blog by Amy Andrews, says that the film, or the premise, is essentially a genre-fied metaphor for teenage sex fear and the snowballing nature of sexually transmitted disease, and kind of how that's very active in the horror genre. She had one other. She didn't love the movie as an all-time classic, or wouldn't put in that, but she liked it. There's a sentiment expressed in here I want to see if you guys agree with.
Okay.
Despite many critics calling it one of the most affecting and frightening films in recent time, I found very little within the picture that raised my blood pressure or forced me to hide my eyes behind my hands, and because of this, I was left with an overwhelming feeling of anticlimax.
I have to agree. I don't think I would call this movie a classic. It's definitely an homage to the classics. It's done in the style of the classics. But me personally, it just didn't scare me that much.
Right.
Yeah, it's great in its simplicity in that it's not a gore fest. It's not doing these jump scares. It's not doing all these really worn out tropes that you see today in horror that ruins the genre. But also, it was just a little too simple for me.
I will say, as I said before, I wasn't terribly afraid of the creature or what was happening, except for maybe one or two instances that really made the
Was it when it was
hairs-
like right on her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are only a few instances where I was like, actually, I felt my heart rate increasing or whatever. That being said, I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say overwhelmingly anticlimactic.
So Michael mentioned The Thing very briefly earlier, and
The movie The Thing?
yeah,
Okay.
and like The Thing, this movie sets up that impersonation is going to be kind of a big deal. That it can look like anyone. It can look like people to get close to you. Doesn't really happen too much though.
Yeah, the creature literally just walks. It happens to look like something, but it doesn't use it to its advantage.
That premise is not used to its fullest extent, I want to say.
Yeah.
Ratings.
Ratings.
Let's do it.
Who wants to go first? Ryan, you've seen it.
The camera's on you, though.
Oh,
Yeah, let's see
jeez.
Steven.
All right. Well, I kind of said before, I wouldn't call this a classic. It's done in the style of the classics. Not too scary, a little too simple. I'll sleep fine tonight. Solid, but doesn't quite get up there. I'm going to give it a B+.
Yeah, I feel like this is something that a lot of people should see and a lot of people should enjoy, even if you're not a huge fan of the horror genre. I feel like if you're a fan of film, this is just a good example of how you do a movie with what you've got. And the scores I thought was really cool. And while it wasn't terrifying to me, there were definitely a lot of parts that left me anxious and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's really the whole thing, building suspense. So I will give it a B.
James, you had a good point that this is kind of a filmmaker's horror movie, for sure. The pure enjoyment of this movie extends beyond that, though, just given its genre and its basic premise. It's a very simple premise, which is very well executed, very well done. I think that, in terms of the imitation aspect, some of the rules of the game that it introduces are not quite explored to their fullest extent. But overall, I greatly enjoyed it. I thought it was really intense, and I'm going to give it an A-.
I think it's a very solidly built film. I think one of the best compliments, but it's so backhanded, that you can give to a horror film is it was a good movie, not just a good horror movie.
Right.
But I totally feel that way about this. I feel that this will be one of the better movies I see all year. My rating for this is the same as Ryan's. I give it an A+, or A-, which leaves us at an average of a B+. Hyperdrive.
What's going on, Steven?
Released an interview with Black Nerd Comedy, who's a channel and person that I love watching. So I released that, and then other than that, it's just been our usual schedule. More collabs in the works, doing a lot of graphics for people, including ourselves. We're still in the middle of updating our graphics and for the podcast videos and the rest of our videos. So just trying to polish everything up.
Fun stuff.
Ryan put a lens flare right there, just when I'm like, ching.
There's a perfect sound effect for that too.
Yeah, you don't even have to put in a sound
Nope.
effect. We already did it.
All right, you guys ready for one last roll call? Are we forgetting anything?
Yeah, that's gonna do it for another episode of the show.
From the rock.
I saw where you were going. I was like, wait, save it.
Yeah, I'd save it. Let's go around and save for one last roll call.
The man playing with the dolls is...
They're not dolls, they're action figures. I'm Mike Bourbon, child man.
Steuben, Steven, Suburban, the Burb, Zarita, the Jerk.
James McAnally, a.k.a. McDoodles.
A.K.A. McToilus.
McToilus.
And I'm Ryan Evans. Thank you once again for joining us for another episode of
From Under a Rock.
Oh, I should have had a figure of The Rock.
Where? Yeah, you have like all of these wrestlers and you don't have The Rock?
I have him, he's just at home.
Lame.
I cooked him.
Do you smell it?
The Rock's